Welcome back to another episode of Metal Verbalizers podcast. This podcast is for you that wants to discover new fantastic metal. We feel that there aren't enough podcasts that support the underground scene. That is why the whole purpose of this podcast is to find new and or smaller bands and tell you about them. This time we have a very special episode for you. This is the biggest episode that we have ever made. It will be split up in two parts. And in this episode, we are going to join forces with Black Tornado Podcast. He's doing a similar thing as we do, and we want to support him. After you've listened to this episode, go to his YouTube channel and listen to part 2 of this metal talk.
Well, I like your guys' thing, and that's what I was saying in your live. I'm like, man, I should go live while I'm editing too. And I'm like, but the only people I know that do that are the Verbalizers. So I feel like I'm ripping them off.
No,
It's like that's
if you want
not
to do
thing.
it, just do it.
Yeah.
Go for
I think
it.
it's a great idea.
I think it's cool because like with that, like with you guys, for example, well, I like jumping on yours because what was it, the Bare Knuckle Brawl? That's how I found out about them. Is one of the guys was in your thing, and then I don't know, he and I said a few words to each other, and then right after I ended up pulling them up and getting into their music. So
Right.
I try to catch your guys's, usually because there's a band member or two, you guys are talking about either maybe you'd already done an episode or you're planning on doing one. And then for me, I'm going, oh, I don't know them. So it gives me an excuse to go, check out new bands and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we're really, really happy to hear that because, I mean, that's pretty much like one of the main reasons we started the podcast. To make sure that happens. So it's really happy to hear that.
And that's what I really respect about your show is that my show and your guys' show is so similar in the sense that like what we're doing, like, and I don't mean to disparage other metal radio shows or podcasts or whatever, but, and I try not to listen to them too much because I don't want to accidentally take an idea or something. I mean, you guys, it's a little bit different because the shows are just so similar.
Yeah.
But you know what happens? You go on and they go, all right, we're gonna play Slayer, and then we're gonna play Anthrax, then we're gonna play Testament, and then we're gonna play one local band, my cousin's band, we're gonna play them. And it's more like it's like a radio show, which is cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But like what we do, focusing on the little guy, focusing on the underground, that's to me what's really cool. And so in February like the 26th or something is the first full year of the reboot. Because I started the show in 2016, did it for like 8 months, and then let it go. And then obviously back in February started up again. So for that, I'm calling it basically the year one wrap up show. And because there's only like 5 people that currently listen to the show that were around in 2016, on that episode, I'm not playing any music and I'm just telling this really long story about how everything started. Like where I got the idea to do it, getting a bunch of gear in the beginning, like stolen, winning all of the money for the audio equipment at a casino because I got incredibly lucky one night and decided not to blow it on booze and shit and bought mixers, mics, pop filters, headphones, and it's funny, I had a week off work because I took some PTO time just to relax, and I started writing just like the bare bones of what I thought the story would be. And about a day later, I had like 3 pages worth of this that I'm almost done. Like I'm almost caught up to current day, but not yet. But the point is, it's turning into like just to sit there and read it would be probably at least an hour. So I said, I'm not going to play any music on that episode. This is just going to be for people that are interested in how everything started. I mean, there's some funny stuff that comes along, and then, you know, but for the most part, it's just like I was that kid in middle school and high school that was street teaming for local bands, putting up flyers, handing out CDs, handing out cassette tapes, you know, and then going to shows, collecting. You know, I was collecting them like fucking Pokemon cards, man. Guys would come up with, you know, with their single on CD or their single on cassette, and I've just added to the pile. Trade with other friends that went to other shows that didn't get the last guy's CD, and I've always just, everybody knows Pantera and everybody knows Black Sabbath, right? We don't need to talk about them, but if we're talking about a band like Bare Knuckle Brawl, for example, there's a million people out there that don't know that band.
Yeah.
So if we can, but should, correct. But if we can
definitely
bring a few more people to their page, to their Spotify, YouTube, whatever, it makes them feel good because they're getting more people involved, and you know, we get to kind of pat ourselves on the back a little bit because we're helping facilitate this band getting more views.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a win-win-win situation, really.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a you scratch my back, I scratch your back kind of thing. I mean, really, it is. You're bringing great music that we get to enjoy, and then in the same token, people that want to listen to underground music can turn to our respective channels and find these new bands. I mean, I do the same thing every time you guys put something up. I go, I don't know them, and then I listen to you guys, you know, verbalize the band.
Yeah.
And after, you know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is up, I go, oh, cool. Now I know about this band that 15 minutes ago I didn't know about.
Yeah. It is quite, in our episodes, like in your episode 14, I think it was, when you talked a tiny little bit about us. Yeah. You mentioned that we have a very compressed format. Like we usually do between 10 and 15 minutes.
Right.
But there are a lot of information in these episodes.
No, they're definitely packed. There's a lot of, even doing the one-off interviews, like I talked to John from Pit Lord that came out yesterday. Yeah. And that was so cool just because, like, I had done interviews in 2016 and I had a lot of fun doing that because I get to deep dive and I get to research these bands and I get to maybe dig up something fun for them, not just the average question they get asked 100 times.
Yeah.
And with just me, it just streamlines it a little bit more, if that makes sense. It just makes everything just a little smoother.
I totally get that, and we have talked about that quite a lot as well, back and forth right now. So we are soon going to wrap up season 3 of Metal Verbalizers.
Yeah.
Probably sometime around Christmas.
Cool.
Because that's what we usually do, and then like 1 or 2 weeks into January, we're gonna kick off the next season. And for season 4, I think that we're gonna see a lot of improvements in our podcast. Because
I think so too.
We have talked about and are probably going to revamp our verbalizing episodes. So it's going to be a total overhaul. And hopefully we're going to try it in the beginning and see what's going to happen and see what people likes the most. But I think that it's going to be even more focus on the bands, and the bands are going to have the option of being more present.
Yeah.
So I think that what's going to happen, I guess we can reveal this now. Or what do you say, Johan?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. We have talked about basically turning the interviews that we did before into our verbalizing episodes.
So we're hopefully, if we can pull this off, going to have the bands present in the verbalizing episodes. So the episodes that we have, because as of right now, we send off an email to the bands where we ask them some questions, basically like a small interview, but then we get written answers to us and base our episodes on that, of what we're going to talk about and such. But now we're going to do it more like an interview where the band can actually be here talking to us and elaborate in a totally different way.
Right.
So I think that the episodes are maybe going to become longer because fans can elaborate more and we can ask more questions based on their answers.
Yeah, I was just going to say they might have an answer that leads into your next question, thus making the show a little longer.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you get that banter that is going to make everything hopefully a lot better, I think.
Absolutely. Now, my question for you guys, how do I word this? How do you guys do your seasons? Is it by year? Is it by quarter year? How does that work for
basically
a season?
By year.
By year. Yeah. Okay. So you guys are going into year 4?
Yeah.
Wow, congratulations, guys. That's really
Thank you very much.
4 years, man.
The time has been flying, and we have passed over 100 bands verbalized right now.
That is cool,
which is super cool.
Yeah.
Because, and quick, I got to shout out the reason that I know about you guys in the first place is Amanda from Kurthroth. She followed Black Tornado pretty closely to when the show had its restart in February of 2024 of this year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
She reposted when you guys verbalized her band.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, cool." And the funny thing is, and this is why I love that we get along. I won't name anybody else because I don't want to be that guy. But there's a lot of, I don't want to say competition isn't the right word, but it sure seems like a lot of other metal podcasts aren't friendly. They're not. It doesn't seem like there's like any kind of animosity, but it sure seems like bands are very willing to work with a podcast.
Definitely.
But other podcasts don't seem very willing to work with each other. Have you guys noticed that at all?
Yeah. I think that's a shame. I think that is a very big missed opportunity.
Absolutely.
Like we are doing now. Yeah, we maybe don't verbalize any bands right now, which is what we usually do. But we talk with each other and talk about each other's podcasts, so we can help each other.
Yeah, I mean,
which I think is super cool.
Ever since day one, I have always said that I believe that with bands, podcasters, promoters of any kind, I am a firm believer that there's room for everybody at the table to sit down and eat.
Yeah.
There's no, I mean, you guys aren't selling anything. I'm not selling anything. It's not like we're not asking for subscription-based services. We're not saying, oh, join our podcast for $5 a month or whatever. It's all free. Just listen to it's not like we're paying customers away from each other, because there are no paying customers. And I feel like with some of these other podcasts, I could be wrong, but this is how I'm interpreting it. I'm interpreting it as, well, if they listen to your show, they're not going to listen to my show. As where on Black Tornado, anybody that's listening now knows I've plugged my favorite horror movie podcast, Blood in the Cornfields. I've plugged them on just about every episode because I want you to want you to listen to their show. I've plugged you guys too. I said, go listen to the Metal Verbalizers. Like, there's 24 hours in a day. The shows don't go anywhere. Once they're up forever. So listen. Go ahead. I'll say it right now. Listen to the Metal Verbalizers first, and then go listen to Black Tornado. I don't care.
Yeah.
Or do it in whatever order you want because the shows are going to be up. But if you like the information that Black Tornado puts out, you will like the information that the Metal Verbalizers put out. You're gonna like both shows. If you're a fan, it's like if you're a fan of Black Sabbath, you're probably a fan of Judas Priest, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And you're probably a fan of Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
Listen to one band and then listen to the next band. Listen to their podcast and then listen to mine.
That is a very good way of like bringing it, because it is pretty much the same. It is pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, nobody listens to one metal band and goes, "This is the only band. I'm only going to listen to Testament for the rest of my life." No, I mean, you can do that, but man, you're missing out on a lot of good bands.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Same thing with the podcast. If you find the big thing, and this is just talking about both of our programs.
Yeah.
We focus on, in my opinion, the most important part of metal. We focus on the guys that you don't know.
Yeah. Exactly.
And everybody started out small. Metallica was playing tiny little dive bars in California, and now they sell out every single place they go. Slipknot was playing tiny little dive bars in Des Moines, Iowa. Now they're selling out everywhere they go. Who knows if one of these bands that you hear on Black Tornado or the Verbalizers, who knows if one of these bands, they're up next.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Who knows?
Yeah, for sure.
This is like watching a college basketball player, and then he goes into the NBA. You got to see him first.
Yeah.
And just like with our two programs, one of these bands takes off, and 3 years from now, 5 years from now, you go, "Oh, I first heard them on the Metal Verbalizers, or I first heard them on Black Tornado."
That would be so cool.
You never. Hey, I hope all the time for it, man. Some of these bands are so fucking good. Where I go,
exactly.
I go, how are you guys not bigger? Well, maybe you will be, but you guys deserve to be bigger. You know?
Yeah, because I think both of our podcasts, both the Metal Verbalizers and the Black Tornado podcast, I think we have made it pretty clear that there's definitely not a lack of quality in the underground scenes either.
It's everywhere,
so,
and the problem is it's hard to. And I think it's fair that I can speak for both of us. We put a lot of time into digging through the underground, and for every 20 bands you hear, 1, 2, 3 really stick out. And so we take those bands that really stick out and we put them on a playlist or we verbalize them.
Yeah.
So we're taking the hard work out of it for the fans scouring Bandcamp all day. We took the hard part out, and we're giving you the best parts of what we found. No, it's subjective, of course. It's all subjective.
Yeah, sure.
But for us, for our personal interpretations, we're taking the best of what we found and going, here you go. You know, and like I've said on many episodes, so there's 5 bands per episode, because I found that if I do more than 5 songs, you'll forget what you heard. You know, if I play 20 bands, okay, tell me the 8th band. You can't. It's impossible.
I think 5 is a pretty good number.
5 is good because and the idea is that, I mean, really the idea is I hope you love all 5, but really the idea is that out of the 5, if one of them really piques your interest and you go, wow, that 3rd band is amazing. And then you go and you subscribe to their YouTube channel. You like them on Instagram. You pump up their Spotify numbers. It shows that band that they need to continue making music because people are finding them, you know? And I think that's a common goal that both of our programs have, is that really at the end of the day, it's all about heavy promotion.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just the way that we do our promotion just happens to be a really cool way of doing it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Something that I love to do, and how I find some of these bands is through Spotify.
Yeah.
I fucking love Spotify. I know that there are some some people say that you shouldn't use Spotify because it doesn't get the bands any money, which it doesn't. It's a very small amount of money that Spotify brings to the bands and such. But I use Spotify to like find bands and such. So what I like to do is like, yeah, this song I found with this band, and I fucking love it. So what I do is I turn that song on. I listen through it in my car or something because I have like 45 to 50 minutes to go to work.
Okay.
So I put that song on. What's gonna come after? I don't fucking know because it's not an album I've turned on. I have no idea what's gonna come on. Spotify is gonna shoot something for me, and more often than not, it is something that is similarly underground as the first band that I put on.
Right.
So that way I've found a ton of the bands that I've been talking about.
Oh, absolutely. And real quick, I just want to jump on the back of what you just said. There's nothing. Spotify in itself is amazing. It's awesome for the reasons that you just listed. That's what makes it great. The reason people don't like it and the problem with Spotify is pay your fucking bands some money.
Yeah.
Give these bands what they get, like a penny per stream or something like weird. That. It's almost insulting. It's insulting is what it is. Now you could take the same approach to our show, where think of any band, you hear them on Spotify, and you really like them. You really go, holy shit, these guys are great. So then you go on their Bandcamp page and maybe you order a T-shirt or a CD or something. You could say the same thing with our show. I mean, I do it for a lot. I've got a whole rack of shirts just from the bands that I've played on Black Tornado.
Yeah.
You know, I'll hit them up and go, man, you guys are fucking great. And I played your song. And oh, by the way, I ordered a T-shirt, a hat, and a CD. And, but the other side of the coin is we're not charging anyone anything. If we were charging and not giving anything back financially, I'd call us both crooks.
Yeah.
Black Tornado will never be monetized because I couldn't imagine taking money out of someone else's pocket. People have asked about like, oh, you should make like Black Tornado T-shirts or something. Maybe, but the only way I could do it is I would have to sell it as close to cost as humanly possible.
Yeah.
I don't want to make it. If you're nice enough, if you like my show enough to want to wear the logo on your shirt, that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
I'm so honored by that I couldn't imagine. Let's just say, for example, the shirts cost me, I don't know, $10. To sell it to you for 25 or 30 is insanity.
Yeah.
I would go, okay, the shirt cost me 10, the shipping cost me 12. How's $14? I'm gonna make a couple of bucks, and then with that money, I'll just put it into like more stickers or buttons, and that stuff I just give out.
Yeah.
If I go to local shows, I stand in line with people, and I just go, here you go. You know how many people turn down a free sticker? 0.
Yeah, for sure.
No one turns down free. I got I don't have. Oh yeah, I do. I have nobody can see this, but I have bass picks with the Black Tornado logo. And if I go to shows, I mean, nobody turns down a free pick.
No.
Yeah.
They just go, thanks, man, cool. And it doesn't cost me a ton of money. It's a cost that I'm willing to eat because when the person comes home, maybe they'll turn on the show.
Yeah.
And
like, what is this shit? Black Tornado podcast.
Yeah.
What is it? I gotta check that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then sometimes, sometimes you leave the venue and there's one lying on the ground because the guy just fucking tossed it. But hey, that's okay too. That's okay too. buttons and stuff like that. None of that stuff is very expensive to press up.
Yeah.
And it's not about promoting myself. It's about promoting a place where you can find these underground bands.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I've said since day one, the show ain't about me. I'm just a voice on the show. It's about the bands.
Yeah, exactly.
Anybody can do what I'm doing. I just happen to be doing it.
Yeah. It's pretty much like our show. We don't have any official merch either. I have the hat on me right now.
Yeah.
But that is not something that you can buy from us.
Right.
This is something that I've gone online for myself,
right,
and my brother, and put our logo on for us. So we don't have any official merch out.
Hold on, now I gotta switch my hat.
And I don't really think that we. There you go.
There we go. Now I feel better. Yeah. I mean, it's the same thing. There's a guy on Etsy that makes custom patches.
Cool.
And I had to make this one. I bought just a black hat and I just sewed it on by hand. Like, I don't sell them. It's just for me, just if I'm out, if I go to a bar or something. And you would be surprised. Usually this side, I'm out right now, but usually one side of the hat is full of buttons. I'll have like 15 on one side. I go to a bar and somebody eventually goes, "Hey man, what's with all those buttons?" And I just pull one off. I go, "Here you go."
Oh, you have with the Black Tornado buttons.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool.
I do.
That's actually a cool idea.
I do the whole one side of the hat with 10, 15 buttons, because you're gonna notice a guy sitting there with a bunch of buttons on one side of his hat.
Yeah. And, you are going to see that eventually.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, I've been everywhere from bars to diners getting a bite to eat, and the waitress, "Hey, what's up with that?" I go, "Oh, do you listen to metal?" And more times than not, it's no. But if anybody goes, "Yeah," I go, "Here you go." Pull one right off the hat and slide it to them.
Yeah.
So I am just a walking billboard. I am just, and if I ever do make shirts, I will wear my own shirt, around. Yeah. Shameless self-promotion.
We have talked a little bit about maybe possibly in the future do merch or stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's not really a priority for us.
No.
Really.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't really a priority for me. I was bored. I didn't have anything to edit, and I was sitting around, and I just thought, it would be cool, buttons. Let's see how much it costs. And then I went, wow, that isn't expensive at all. All right, let's order 100. So they came in a few days later, and then a place that I love putting stuff down, especially the picks, is guitar stores. I'll go into guitar stores to buy, bass strings or try out pedals or something. And every time I pass an amp, I just put one or two down. And the people at the stores know I'm doing it. They don't care because I'm not soliciting anybody. I mean, I'm just giving out a free pick. Exactly. You don't have to listen to the show at all. Just use the pick.
Yeah. There's no money involved. There's nothing. You just drop the pick.
Yeah, and I don't go up to people like customers and harass them and go, "Hey, do you listen to metal? Listen to my show." No, I set stuff down. Some places, one guitar store, they stopped doing this. I think it was right around COVID. They used to have a little table where bands could put CDs, flyers, things like that.
That's awesome.
And so I used to put the Black Tornado stuff there too.
Right.
And it's not, you're not asking anybody for anything. You're just going, "Hey, here's free stuff."
Yeah.
If you want
That's
it,
a really
great.
cool idea.
Yeah.
And basically, like putting your pick there with Black Tornado's logo is basically to show them. It's like if you had somewhere there put with names of songs, like, "Here's an album."
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Instead of albums, it's like, "Here's a shit ton of great bands."
Yeah. Here's hours and hours and hours worth of bands.
Yeah.
And no, I've always I don't force it down people's throats. I don't go into other Facebook groups, metal pages that I'm on and promote the show. My friends do, and I'm thankful for my friends that like that's my street team buddies. There's a band, I've talked about them 100 times, a band called Hail Shot. And when Hail Shot used to go on tour, I would send buttons, stickers, anything I had. And then on their merch table, when they're playing Kalamazoo, next to their t-shirts and CDs would be a little pile of Black Tornado stuff. And I said, just give it out. Just if people want to take it. So they had a little thing that said free, and then they'd have Black Tornado stuff. And it's just kind of cool when you're out and about, or somebody will take a picture. This is a few months back. Somebody sent me a picture, and the guy's backpack, he had a Black Tornado pin on his backpack.
Right.
And I was like, it's fucking awesome. It's cool.
That's cool as fuck.
Yeah. I've had like some weird things like that happen. I mean, the show is very small. So if somebody outside of my immediate friends or family that knows about the show, whatever, if I see like a sticker somewhere or a button or something like that, I freak out a little bit because I think it's so cool. Like, do I know this person? I don't recognize this car. Whose car is this that has my sticker on it? You know?
That was actually something that we recently experienced as well, because we were at a show where, for example, Sarkader played.
Okay.
Which is a band that we have been talking about on our show, and God, they were fucking great live as well.
Hell yeah.
All of the 4 bands were great that night. But then we met a couple in the audience, and I think it was my dad that started talking to them, and they saw his shirt because he has a shirt with our logo on.
Nice.
And he started talking about them, the show and such. And apparently, the lady in the couple were actually a listener.
Very cool.
So I were like, oh shit, you actually listened to the show.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's really cool when stuff like that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just fun because, like I said, you know your friends that listen to the show or bands or members of bands that support your show, you know, you're aware of them. But it's fun when it kind of blindsides you.
Yeah, exactly.
I was at a bar a number of years ago, and the bartender had one of my buttons on her purse. Her purse was behind the bar, and I could recognize my logo from a mile away. And I go, I didn't give you one of those. I said, so how did you get that? And she's like, oh, my friend gave it to me. And I thought the logo was cool, so I slapped it on my purse. And I'm like, have you ever listened to the show? She's like, no, I just thought the logo was cool. I'm like, all right, man, I'll take it. That's awesome.
It is a cool logo.
Yeah, I said, I'll take it, man. I was at a music festival in Chicago with a bunch of big bands. You know, Kiss was headlining that year, I think, and Code Orange and a bunch of bands, Meshuggah. And I had a Black Tornado pin on my vest, and somebody recognized it. But I don't know if they realized it was me. Like, maybe I just listened to Black Tornado. And so they were talking about it as if they didn't know it was me. So I just let them run with it. I'm like, it's pretty cool podcast, I guess. It's all right. And it's cool. And I was like, all right, man, take care. And I walked away, and I'm like, I don't know if that person realizes that that's me. Maybe I'm just some dude with a pin. But, you know, little stuff like that. I mean, it's those little things that make, and I'm sure for you guys, because I'm sure you guys get this. I've said this before on my show. My favorite thing, I have 2 favorite things, and both are tied with each other. One is when either a friend or a listener will message and go, wow, that band that you played last week, those guys kick ass. I love that band now. I love that. And the other thing I love is when a band will message and say, thanks so much for the support. Thanks so much. Hey, we noticed that, you know, our numbers have gone up a little bit. We have some more likes. We have some more follows, more whatever. And that is just my favorite part because it shows me that the show's working.
Yeah.
You know,
that is the best thing ever.
It's so cool because you really feel like, I mean, what we're both doing is trying to help. And it's nice when our help is seen and appreciated.
Yeah,
definitely.
For sure.
You know, it just, I'm sure I'm speaking for both of us. It just makes you feel good.
Yes.
You know, it makes you feel appreciated.
Most definitely.
So let's, I know we kind of just jumped in the middle, but I did have a few questions because these are some questions that I've been asked. And since it's a very similar setup, I'm sure that the questions will overlap. What made you guys are sitting there one day and you're going, you know, one a year, maybe at the same time you guys said, we have this idea for a show, let's do it. What made that happen?
Well, Johan started off firstly a few years ago with a blog that he had. And that one wasn't as strict with just underground. It was just bands and albums that he loved, and he like wrote reviews and stuff on it.
Yeah. Is that still up? Because maybe I've seen it. Is that still up?
Yeah, it's still available. I never deleted it, but yeah.
I think I read it because you have a link somewhere, right?
The Verbalizer blog.
I read it. Yeah, I read it. Yeah, it's very cool. I like it.
Right.
But yeah, so that one is not updated anymore. So he was like fed up with it and felt like, we want to start something new, and why not start something together?
Yeah.
We want it to be about metal. Why not? Since podcasts are quite popular nowadays, why not try to start a podcast together?
Yeah.
And then we talked a little bit about it back and forth, and it's so common do we really want to talk about Metallica, Slayer, Anthrax, and whatever, Ozzy Osbourne, Judas Priest? Is that really what we want to do?
Right.
Not really.
Yeah.
Isn't it more fun to just dip into that pond of the underground scene and see what we can find there? Because I think Johan had featured some underground bands in his blog as well, and since they absolutely kicked ass, there must be more out there.
Yeah.
So we like just decided that, okay, we're just gonna go for underground. And when we looked at like Spotify, for example, to gauge how large the bands are, if they have like above 30,000 listeners a month, we probably are not going to make an episode about them because then they're probably too large.
I do the same thing.
Yeah.
I have a limit for your listeners, your followers, whatever, and I look at it and I go, you don't need my fucking help.
a little bit like
you don't need my help. You know, if I see a band and you've got 500 followers, I'm like, yep, let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you see that they have 100,000 listeners a month, no, you don't need our help.
Yeah,
we need your help.
Yeah, right.
So we're not going to do an episode about it.
Yeah, I've even seen bands with like 3 listeners on Spotify or something, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Come on, that's far too low.
Yeah, exactly. and those are the ones that I look for. The guys that just, and it kind of bums you out thinking about it from a band's perspective. Some of these bands are so good.
Yeah.
And then you look at their numbers, and they're not a band that started last week. They're a band that's been around for a bit, and they have really low numbers. And I just go, what the fuck? Yeah. These guys are so good. You're telling me only 200 people know about this band? That's crazy. I have to make it.
Yeah.
If I can only make it 201, well, that's one extra person.
Yeah, exactly.
The thing is as well, something that's a very, very important part in that is that it's also a lot of work. Like these smaller bands, like it's not a simple thing to, like record albums and write music and play music. Like it's a lot of work that takes a lot of time. Yeah. So that's also a very important part of it, that we also want to kind of like show our appreciation towards that as well in itself.
Yeah. Sure. The amount of time and effort that goes into, the little stuff that people don't think about, picking a name, designing a logo, coming up with lyrics. When your average person buys a CD, or I guess I'm dating myself. I don't know if people buy I buy CDs, but I don't know if other people do. But you go on Spotify or something, and I think your average person doesn't really consider like how good the mix is or how interesting or unique the guitar playing is. They just listen to the song and then they go on to the next song. But for people like us, we nitpick all that and we think about that kind of stuff and go, wow, that's a really great logo or that's a cool name or whatever. And, your average person, they just go, whatever, next band.
Especially the sound of things like the guitars or etc. like that. That is something that I really take a listen to since I am a musician myself.
Yeah.
I've been playing guitar for the better part of at least 10 years.
Oh, cool.
And no, even more, almost 13 years on and off. I would say that I'm probably an intermediate guitarist at the best. Because
I've been playing forever and I fucking suck. Doesn't stop me from playing though.
Then when I found bands like Lorna Shore and stuff, because I listened to everything from like AC/DC, which are gods in my household. AC/DC and Angus Young is the reason why I started to play guitar. But then I started finding bands like Lorna Shore, and then I started to get into growl as well and extreme vocals. And that is something that I love with doing this podcast, because what I listened to before this podcast, AC/DC, Judas Priest, maybe Ozzy Osbourne, like Motorhead, those kind of bands. That was pretty much what I listened to. Or Airborne, maybe, if I feel frisky. I fucking love Airborne.
But, hey man, that's still what I listen to now.
Yeah.
I mean,
I still listen to it.
Yeah.
But I listen to so much more since we started this.
I mean,
now I listen to symphonic metal. I love when they incorporate growl as a backup vocal in symphonic metal. It gives me the chills. It's awesome. I love it. And then I started to try to learn extreme vocals myself.
Okay,
I love that.
I think with a show where I'm obviously 100% focused on the underground, I probably spend I'm going to say 8 hours minimum a week listening to underground bands. And I love it. It's great, but every once in a while I have to throw on the old classics and listen to the first Black Sabbath record or Motorhead or something like that. It's something I've heard. I call it my comfort music. It's the stuff that I can play it. I can sing every lyric. I know where every guitar note goes. It just changes it up from the underground music, which again, I love absolutely. But sometimes, especially if I'm working on like a theme episode, like when I did the Grindtober episode where it was 15 grind bands. In between putting it together, I was like, fuck, man, I need to listen to like Sam Cooke, or I need to I need to get very far away from grind for an hour and just change it up a bit, because and it's not just grind, it's any genre of music. If I'm focused on one style for too long, eventually I have to go, okay, I've been listening to doom metal for the last 26 hours. Let me put on some jazz.
I'm very similar like that as well.
I fucking hate jazz.
No, here's the thing. You just haven't heard the right jazz.
I think that makes sense.
You just haven't heard I can throw you some Japanese jazz that'll blow your fucking mind. I don't believe that there's any bad genres. I just think that a person hasn't found the right artist. I don't care.
I think that makes sense. I think that makes sense.
I don't care.
It's like the Swedish version of country.
Say again?
It's like the Swedish version of country. That gives me physical pain in my body because I hate it so much. Some American rock country is actually listenable, but the Swedish country, I just can't.
You'll have to send me something because I'm not familiar with Swedish country, but I want to be. Even if it's not good, I want to hear it.
Yeah, but to kind of go back to what you said before, it's like I'm kind of like that as well. You know, I'm listening to a lot of underground metal nowadays, but you know, you kind of go back to those like older classics as well.
Just just the stuff that you know, front, back, and center. You know, when you were 13 years old, you know, 14, however old you were, and you got, you know, you're mentally digging through your old CD case. Yeah. And you're going, man, remember the first time you heard Judas Priest or something? It's like, all right, let's go back there for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the roots.
I think even my clothing represents that. I mean, I have like a Merciful Fate hoodie and like a Hellripper t-shirt.
Oh, dude, like, I got an old Sabbath shirt on, you know?
Yeah.
It's like,
well, now I feel left out. I for once don't have a band shirt on.
Sometimes when I get on with people, I don't have like a band shirt. Like sometimes it's just like a plain gray t-shirt. Yeah. And I don't remember who I was talking to, but the guy, what was he wearing? It was like an old vintage band shirt. You know, it was like an old like Motorhead shirt or something. Right. And somehow Motorhead had come up and he was all amped. And, you know, I cut it out because obviously you can't see on the podcast, so it wasn't really relative to the show. But the guy was like, check out this old Motorhead shirt. So now like because my closet is about a foot away from me. And so now I'm thinking like, oh man, I'm getting on with these dudes. Like, let me make sure I'm wearing some kind of band, you know? And and then it came up. Then it came up in conversation. Yeah. Okay, so that was pretty much how you guys figured out. It started with basically revamping a blog post.
Yeah, and pretty much.
And as cool as a blog post is, I mean, I have nothing. I love zines. I love anything like that where I can kick back and read an article. I love it. But I think like what we're both doing now is so much more accessible in terms of, like I said about my show. If you're doing your laundry, throw on Black Tornado. If you're cooking, throw on Black Tornado.
That's definitely a big part for us as well.
With a blog post or a zine, you have to find time to sit down, read it, focus your attention on what you're reading. With a show like ours, man, you could be driving. Like you said, you got a 45-minute to an hour drive. Throw on a show.
Yeah. I do that literally every day when I go back and forth to work. I love listening to either books or audiobooks or podcasts. I've recently listened through Life of Brian, not the movie, but Brian Johnson from AC/DC.
Yeah.
The
Very
book
cool.
Actually a great book. I actually didn't know that he was a parachute soldier.
No kidding, he was a paratrooper. Oh, my grandfather was a paratrooper. Very cool. I didn't know that either.
Right. That was really cool.
I haven't cracked it yet. I'm waiting, but I just got Geezer Butler's book that he wrote. Nice. And as a massive Sabbath fan, I didn't even know it existed. And then a friend of mine, we were talking about Geezer Butler. He was like, "Oh, did you ever read his book?" I go, "Geezer Butler has a fucking book?" He sends me the link to it. I'm like, "No." I go, "But I'm ordering this right now."
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, if you're into books about musicians and whatnot, Max Cavalera's book is fucking amazing. It's
I need to check that out.
It's such a good read. It's a really one. Because he talks about like growing up in Brazil and like the crazy like corruption and shit that he saw as a kid, to Sepultura starting out. They didn't have any money, they didn't have any gear, they were using borrowed equipment, all the way to getting big and getting signed and everything. And it's a really cool read. Really good book.
Yeah.
And speaking of the speaking of the Geezer Butler book, I'm about to listen to it as well. And did you know that the audiobook is actually read and recorded by himself?
I did not, but I'll have to. I'll probably read it first.
Yeah.
Just like myself. Yeah. But I will definitely go back and listen to the audiobook. I didn't know that he read it himself. That's really cool.
And the Brian Johnson book was actually written or read by Brian Johnson himself as well.
Cool. Awesome.
Which made everything so much more genuine.
Yeah, it's cool when they do that.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, people that are listening to this show, we've given you some we've given you some stuff to listen to, so go check that stuff out. That's fucking awesome. So you guys are going into year 4, man. That is so cool. I'm all amped to finish out the first year. You know, because when I did Black Tornado in whatever it was, 2016, ran for, I don't know, like 8 months or something like that. And I was enjoying it, but I just wasn't getting the feedback that I kind of wanted. Like, I'm at this weird paradox. I don't want the show to get too big. Like, I don't want to wake up tomorrow and have 100,000 listeners. It's just not what I want. I like Black Tornado to be like an underground tape that your friends all trade around. You know, it's like the black metal elitists. Like when their band gets too big, they have to go find a new band because now their band's too big. It's you know what I mean? It's like that's kind of how I feel about the podcast. Like I want, you know what I want? I pretty much have what I want. I want a dedicated fan base. No matter how big or small, when I put an episode up every 2 weeks, guaranteed I can name 5 people, and I know by noon they've already heard it.
Yeah.
You know, like most of them are close friends, but they're metalheads. They're not just listening because it's like, oh, my friend made a show. No, these dudes are hardcore metalheads. And these are the guys that when they find a band, they click the follow button, they click the like button. They message the band and they say, hey, I was listening to Black Tornado and this is how I found you. You know, I would rather have 20 people that are dedicated metalheads than having 1,000 people and only 5 of them are really into the music.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
You know,
because that's the important part with what we're doing.
Yeah.
We want to tell the people about bands that we think that you guys are going to enjoy. So I mean, that is the whole purpose with everything.
And I'm sure you guys do the same thing I do, where I don't just play something because it was sent in, and I don't just play something because maybe it's a friend. I play the stuff that I like. And
definitely.
I guess maybe I'm patting myself in the back or thinking highly of myself. I would like to think that the stuff that I enjoy, other people will enjoy as well.
Yeah, hopefully.
So the idea isn't like if I get something that's sent in and I don't care for it for whatever reason, I'm not going to play it just because. And it's nothing against them. It's not like I'm going to go on and go, this band sucked. I'm never going to play it. I just don't play it. Because,
exactly. We think in the exact same way as well.
Yeah. You want content, but you want good content.
Yeah,
definitely.
You want people to listen to your show and go, this guy plays some really killer shit. I want to listen to the next episode to see if he plays more killer shit. You know?
Exactly.
It's the same thing with you guys. Like the bands that you guys verbalize are good bands.
Yeah.
You know, you guys I can tell, you guys just don't find the first band that you come across and go, well, these guys are next. Nah, man, I know there's a process. Yeah. I know there's a process.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do have a playlist once again on Spotify. And like when I verbalized my bands, I would say that pretty much 100% of the bands that I've been verbalizing has songs in that playlist.
Right.
Since I'm never gonna make an episode about a band that I don't enjoy listening to. That's just not gonna happen. So it's because of that I love the bands that I'm verbalizing, it makes it so much easier to write the episode. Because you're excited about making the episode.
100%.
If you don't like the music, you're not going to be excited about making the episode, and it's not going to work.
Absolutely.
The episode is probably going to get shorter, and it's just not going to work.
Because the
I've
thing
actually
is, like,
noticed that the more I enjoy the bands, probably the longer the episodes are gonna be.
Yeah.
Because I've had bands that come on my podcast that has written quite a small bit. They haven't written that much. So I'm looking through and like, how am I gonna make like 10-15 minutes out of this?
Yeah.
And then at an end, when I've written the episode, like, that's quite a lot.
Yeah.
That was easy to make it that long. And
you were trying to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, when we choose what the bands we're gonna make the episode about, I guess it's like mainly two things that we are kind of like thinking about, which kind of goes hand in hand, I guess. But that's like, first, do we like the band? And also, like, do we believe that this band can be very successful? And like, do we believe that this band could be like liked by a lot of people?
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, if the answer to those questions are yes, then we do the episode.
Yeah.
Now, what I want to ask, and this goes back to, not just putting out content, but putting out good content. After a show airs, do you guys go back and listen to your show?
I would say that
not very often, but it happens.
I don't do myself.
No? Oh man, I do it every when the episode airs. So anybody that listens to Black Tornado knows every 2 weeks there's a new episode. It always airs at midnight my time. So whenever the hell that is anywhere else. But so it automatically airs, so I don't have to I upload it early, obviously. So at midnight it hits. And on my drive to work that Friday, I always listen to.
Right.
I have about a 25-minute drive, so if the show's longer, usually I can knock out the first half on the way in and the second half on the way home. But I always listen to my own show once, just because I can take myself out mentally from doing it, listening to it 100 times while I edit it, and frankly get tired of it. But by the time it airs, I've already worked on something else, a different show, so I can go back and rehear it. And again, kind of patting myself in the back. I've never played anything back and didn't like it. Like, I like listening. It's not like I can skip the parts where it's me talking because that's just weird. But like actually listening to the bands again, that's the part I genuinely enjoy. I'll go like, all right, now I'm going to play whatever. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I remember those dudes, and play them back again. And no, I listen to every episode. Even this, I mean, we're not playing any music. Like, I'll listen back to it just because this is cool. Just hanging out with you guys is a good time.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, I'll play this back just to listen to it. Yeah, this is fun. This is one of those things. Again, I feel like with us, and I feel the same way with like Blood in the Cornfields. We're kind of breaking down those walls of everybody, look out for yourselves and good luck. It's like, no, man, if I can support other people, especially people that are putting out quality content, like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do that. That's awesome. And I'm going to support the hell out of, I've got a Blood in the Cornfield shirt in my closet, man. I wear that out and people, oh, what's that? Oh, if you're into horror movies, it's a horror movie podcast, go listen to them review a movie, and on the other side of the coin, they promote when I've got a new episode up. They've been on the show before. I've been on their show. And it just, if I can bring some of their listeners over to my channel and vice versa, everybody kind of wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly.
And I don't think that there's any need for trying to hoard a fan base.
Neither do I.
It's weird.
That's not why we do this.
Logic
we don't do this to get fans for ourselves. We do this to bring fans to the bands. So,
well, I've said before, it's not about us. Anybody can do what we're doing, but they're not. We are.
Yeah.
Exactly.
There was a guy. This was a long time ago, and I really wish that he was still doing it. There was this. It was one guy. It was a German fella, and he did the exact same thing that I do. Like,
all right,
almost like thing for thing. He had a show. He played underground German bands.
Yep.
You know, he was involved in his local scene, and he would go to these local shows. He'd find these bands. He would interview them, and he would play their music. And it was really similar to Black Tornado in terms of like, all right, I've got a couple of bands, and then he'd play a band. He'd talk about them a little bit, and then he'd play the next band. And it was really cool. He had really low numbers, and I'm sure that has something to do with why he didn't continue to do it. It is a little discouraging when you put in a lot of work and the payoff is a little low. I mean, it's a slow race. You're not going to put up your first episode and get 10,000 views overnight. Not by yourself anyway. Not unless some big content creator finds you and promotes you, which is another reason why I feel like this cross promotion, like what we're doing, is so important.
Yeah.
Because even if it brings 1 to 10 to 20 people over to the other one's channel, then it was all worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, it's a really slow race to start. Go ahead.
We don't have any large numbers, but once again, that's not why we do it. That's when you remember that you don't do it for the numbers.
Exactly.
We've never done it for the numbers. We do it purely because we love the music and we think it's fun to do.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's kind of like going back to your first question a little bit as well, to why we started doing what we're doing. It's like me and Eric did basically what we're doing like long before ever even thinking about starting the podcast. We were sharing bands between each other and talking about, have you heard this band? They don't have a lot of listeners, and you know that. And like kind of doing that between us.
Yeah.
But then we thought like, you know what? Why don't we do pretty much what we're doing anyways, but record it and post it, and maybe other people can we can share it with other people as well.
That is 100% why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
I was having these conversations anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
I would go fishing with one of my metalhead buddies, and we would do the same thing. We would just, hey, did you hear about, I went to go see Deicide last week, and this opening band was amazing. And then we'd, pull out our phone, or he would have a CD and a portable, and we'd play it while we're fishing, and we just start. We joke that we've been having the same conversation for 15 years. It just, the band changes, but it's the exact same conversation. And back in 2016 or so, whenever I started Black Tornado originally, I was like, basically my thought was maybe somebody else would enjoy this conversation.
Yeah.
And then it grew to kind of where it is now. But like for you guys, for example, I agree with you 100%. The numbers are irrelevant. You guys put on this band. They played, I know it's spelled Wacken, but I think it's pronounced Wacken.
Yeah.
Is that the correct
something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it's a German festival, so
right. I think the band started with a K. What was the name of the band?
Kask?
Yes.
From India.
Yes.
When
I turned that one on, I fucking fell in love with that band.
Yeah.
I said, these guys are fucking amazing. And so then I go to another friend and I tell him about the band, and he goes, oh, how'd you hear about these guys? I go, the fucking metal Verbalizers. That's how I found this band. So like that, for example, like this is why we do it.
Yeah. Definitely.
And then so my buddy, what are the metal Verbalizers? I go, it's very similar to what I do.
Yeah.
And then so he was checking out your guys' stuff. He's like, oh, this is great too, and he's his name is Rich. What's up, Rich? He is like the core demographic for like shows like ours. He loves digging into the underground stuff. Awesome. He just likes finding new bands. He's that guy that if you go to a local show, he's there,
Right. Yeah.
And so shows like this, like he's one of them, he's one of those, like he's one of your bread and butter guys. Like you make We make these shows for guys like that are really into finding new bands and then, helping promote and support these guys. And so like me, for example, living in Indiana, I like to heavily support the guys from my home state.
Yeah.
Because then I can go and drive, sometimes 30 minutes, sometimes an hour or two, and I can go see these guys. And again, it's just really cool when you run into a band and they're like, oh, we saw that you tagged us and we listened to the show, and thanks for playing our new record, or thanks for playing an old record. And yeah, I mean, this is what that's all about.
Yeah.
Supporting these bands. And again, I mean, my favorite thing is when I get some kind of feedback, be it fans saying that they love these bands, or the band's just saying thank you. And hey man, we noticed we got a couple more views on Instagram or whatever, and it's like, hey man, that's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really cool. So cheers to both of us. I think I think we're all doing something really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, again, I just wanted to say congratulations again. You guys are coming up on year 4. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
How many episodes, verbalizations, however you classify them?
Well,
how many do you have?
Check real
That's
quick.
actually a good question.
Yeah.
I can barely keep track myself.
Well, I can't because I don't have that many.
We only do verbalizings.
Right.
We do some. We have a concept, chore stories. We can talk a little bit about that later if you want.
Yeah. Well, that's my
together
favorite.
with
Fuck yeah, that's my favorite part.
I think that's the exception, by the way, to the question you asked before. If we listen to our episodes, that is the exception.
Yeah, that is the exception.
Got it. Okay, cool.
But yeah, together with tour stories, the interviews
package
that we have done, the whole package, we're at 135 was the latest episode.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That's really cool. No, and people that are not familiar with the Metal Verbalizers at this point, all their content is great. But the tour stories are my that's my personal favorite. Those are the ones that I don't miss. Those are the best ones. Because
I love those as well.
Beyond interesting. I could listen to, you guys could put up a 15-hour episode and I won't miss a beat. Right. I might have to take a nap in between, but I won't miss a beat.
Yeah, that's okay.
Those are just super cool. Those are a lot of fun.
We will definitely do more often.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I hate that we haven't had the time because I have a lot with my work that I do now. I work like 180 hours a month or something like that right now.
Damn.
I work a lot, but I started a new job, so I just want to show them that here you got a guy that knows how to work hard.
Right. Yeah. Once you get into a new place, you really have to show them that you're worth keeping around.
Exactly. That's how I work.
No, I that's how everybody should. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Man, that is a crazy amount of content. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Shit, I think I'm at like, I don't know, 23 or 24 or something like that.
It's your first year, and that would make sense if you're about to go past your first year. Which congratulations about that.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that makes sense.
If you do an episode every 2 weeks, I think I ran the numbers. It's like 26 episodes a year or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I just don't do. I don't. And nothing against it. I think it's awesome. I don't really break out of the mold of doing every 2 weeks. Like, for example, I've got stuff already recorded that I've done in between, say, the next episode coming out. And I could, in theory, put out an episode every week for the next however many weeks. But I'm very regimented. Yeah, I'm very regimented. I like that people know that there's going to be a new episode every 2 weeks. Yeah. And again, it gives you time to mentally digest the 5 bands. If there's something every single week with 5 more bands and 5 more bands, I don't want people to rush through it. If you only have time to listen to the first 2 bands because you're busy with work or family or whatever, hey man, show's not going anywhere. You still got 2 whole weeks before the next one. Take your time.
Definitely.
Listen to it.
That makes sense. That makes sense for sure.
The most important thing is to really focus on these guys. And like I said in the beginning, the idea is, of course, that I want you to love all 5. Yeah. But realistically, if you fall in love with one band, then I've made, like, I did what I set out to do.
Yeah. That kind of goes back a little bit to what we talked about earlier as well. That, like, you know, the reason why we do what we do. Like, we're not doing it for money. We're not doing it for followers. We're doing it for the music.
Absolutely.
And that kind of goes back to that a little bit, you know, that you want the listeners to really pay attention to the 5 bands. And like you're saying, if you're doing too many episodes too often, that might kind of take away from that a little bit. Yeah. So I totally see what you mean.
Yeah, and that's one of the big differences between our shows. You do 5 bands a show, and we only focus on one band a show.
Yeah. Right.
Just to get more like into the nitty gritty and like get into the details about one band.
And well, that's what I really love and appreciate about your show, is that you guys take a magnifying glass to one band at a time and do a pretty impressive coverage of that one band. And I think that for that, it's really cool if, for example, you know, because your episodes are for the most part shorter than mine.
Yeah.
I think that if you have more limited time, it is great to have a show like yours where maybe you have a shorter commute, or maybe you just don't have as much free time. You know, my shows average 45 minutes to an hour. Obviously, this will be a little bit longer because I have you guys with me. But for the most part, about an hour, maybe a little bit over. And I understand that for somebody with a really busy schedule and family and other things going on, sometimes it just isn't feasible. For you guys, what you guys can do in 20 minutes with one band is so great. And you guys are like, the Pringles of metal podcasts, because they're short enough where you're never just going to listen to one and then go do something else. At least if you're me. Yeah. You're going to listen to one and you're going to go, oh, that was great. Oh, that was only 15 minutes. Well, I have time for another one. And you play 2. And then before you know, you're at 30 minutes and you go, okay, cool. I had I'm good now. But yeah, the metal, I will say this now, the metal verbalizers are the Pringles of the metal podcast world.
Yeah, I like that.
Where you won't just stop at one. Nobody just eats one Pringle and walks away. It's impossible. The metal verbalizers, you're gonna listen to one. He's gonna fucking Pringles. Yeah. You can't see it. Eric held up Pringles. You can't see it. We didn't plan that.
See it on our YouTube.
Yeah, you can see it on the YouTube. we didn't plan that. That was hysterical. That was great.
That kind of caught me off guard.
That was perfect. That couldn't have been planned. That couldn't have been planned better. But no, I really like that with your guys' show is that, like I said, at least for myself, a lot of times I'll listen to the first one. You know, say you guys put up a new one tomorrow, I'll listen to it, and then I'll dig back through the YouTube page and I'll find one that I missed. I'll put another one on.
Yeah.
You know, as where my show, it's kind of long. Like by the time it's over, you're like, all right, cool. I've had my fill for 2 weeks. You know, I mean, of course, obviously, then the plan is, which I've said many times on many episodes, listen to the show, find the band or 2 that you love, and then go stream the shit out of it. Listen to the whole album, buy a t-shirt, whatever you want. And again, that's kind of another reason why I've been very lax on merchandise, is like, fuck buying my merch. Go buy the band seat.
Exactly. Once again, we don't do it for us, we do it for the bands.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of our mindset as well.
I've told people many times, feel free to bootleg my shit. Just send me a picture of it. Like if you take the image off, like the image that you guys see behind me, if you guys take that and make a T-shirt, just like send me a picture. Like I'd be kind of pissed if you were selling them, because that's kind of fucked up. But if you just
because that could put filth on your name.
Oh, and you're stealing my shit. That's weird. Yeah, exactly. That's kind of weird, you know. But if you just want like a pin or a T-shirt or something or a hat, just like do it. Just send me a picture so I can, and I'll post it. I'll go, hey, fucking, you know, the Metal Verbalizers guys made a Black Tornado thing. Like, cool. It's not whatever brings more people over to the show. And again, I'm so humbled. I'm so humbled that I've even been asked about, oh, are you gonna make stuff? Because then that tells me that people obviously like the show enough to want to show other people. I mean, I wear a Black Sabbath shirt out grocery shopping, and then people go, oh, that guy listens to Black Sabbath. If somebody does that with my show, obviously they like it enough to want to tell whoever they're around that this is what they're listening to. Yeah. And it's humbling, you know. It's nice. It's nice to know that. But yeah, at the end of the day, I don't want your money, man. Just go buy one of the band CDs. I've got a bookshelf behind me full of CDs from just, you know, not just like big bands, but I'll go to local shows, and a lot of times the bands sell the CDs for so cheap. It's like, yeah, man, of course I'll give you $5 for a CD. Let's go, you know? Yeah. And again, going back to what we said earlier about how much time it takes, not just the writing process, the mixing, but I mean, you got to pay an artist, and you have to have somebody design the cover. And if you have a booklet, somebody has to design that. There's so much time and effort and energy that goes into it. I mean, I'm that person that if the CD comes with a booklet, and I flip every page, I check every little. I
think you guys were talking about that in a show I listened to today. I think it was 14 there. Okay. You guys were talking about that, just that you're talking about now. Yeah. Like I don't know if it was you or Ian or whoever it was that bought like a record, and on the way home, like looking through the booklet and stuff. Yeah. Yeah. And like you were also talking about that in this whole process of running a band and such, it is not just the musicians that you see on stage.
No, you've got a lighting crew, and you've got a load-in crew, and
promoters, the graphic designers, the sound engineers,
everybody from. I was at a show once, local show, at this terrible bar, and the guy who was supposed to be running the door, you know, collecting the money and giving people their wristbands, guy didn't show up.
Oh, shit.
So the guitar player was a friend of mine, and I got there early because I always like to, if it's a band that I know that I'm friends with, I show up early. I'll help you carry amps. I'll help you run cables, whatever you need of me. I'm here to give a hand. And so the guitar player comes up to me. He goes, I have a really weird request. I go, yeah, what's up? He goes, can you run the door for like 2 hours? I'm like, yeah, brother, I got it. So they're setting up, and I'm just sitting at the door, just taking. They gave me the lockbox with the key with some cash in it to make change for people, and that's the only time I've ever done that. But it was just one of those things. Like, as much as I'm here to, just like everybody else, enjoy the bands and have my fun, if I know the bands, if they're friends of mine, I'll do anything you ask of me. You want me to run your merch table? You need me to help carry your drum kit? Because it takes a village to make these shows go off well. You know, how can they be focused on tuning up their instruments and there's nobody taking tickets? There's nobody taking money at the door. They can't even focus on what they're supposed to be focused on. Or how can, you know, something broke, and how can they focus on their next thing when in the back of their mind all they can think about is, how do we fix this broken thing? You know, so if you can help out, you know, I'm not just saying just go grab people's gear, you'll probably get your ass kicked. But if you know if you know people personally, and they allow you to do it, there's no harm in asking if somebody needs a hand, especially with these local venues, these smaller places, when a band has just driven 6 hours to get to the spot from where they are. These guys are tired. These guys are hungry, and anything to make them more at ease so that later in the evening they can put on a better show for you. Absolutely is worth it. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was basically for this reason that we started our concept there with tour stories. We wanted to sort of take the fans of the bands behind the stage, because basically the only thing that we see as fans are what they do on stage. We never see what happens behind the stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
So that's why we came up with this idea. And firstly, it was with the interview with the Canadian band Arsenal.
Yeah.
Canadian thrash. Where Johan asked him, "Do you have any fun tour anecdotes?" And this was a regular interview. This was before tour stories.
Okay.
And then he told a story about when they were in Mexico on tour. And he told a story about when they pranked their drummer.
Okay.
So they took one of their phones, because he was always sitting by the window smoking.
Okay.
Before going to bed. So what they did was they took one of their phones, put it by the hid it by the window, and played gunshot sounds from it whilst they were asleep.
Yeah.
You got to hear Matt tell their story if you haven't heard it.
So then it ended with like the drummer like thought it was some kind of a cartel war or something like that, to the extent that he was calling his girlfriend.
Wow.
And like, "Oh, this is some kind of a war here. I don't know if I'm gonna come back from this."
It's pretty funny
there is
when Matt
even
is telling
a bigger
the story.
part of this. At the end of the story, Matt tells us that they never told the drummer about the prank.
Oh God, that's great. They never told him.
So the first time the drummer heard about the prank, or it being a prank, was from our show. If you now listen to our show,
yes,
which was so funny. But then
if you want to know if you've been pranked, listen to our podcast.
Yes. Yeah, we love that story so much and thought it was hilarious. So then we decided, like, there must be more stories.
Yeah, because the thing is, what you kind of need to add there as well is that, like, initially it was more like an idea as like one small question during an entire interview.
Yeah.
But then, like, Matt's response was basically like, kind of laughing and then saying, "Oh, really? Like, I have so many stories that I could fill an entire episode in itself. But I can tell this one." So no, that kind of made us think, like, wait a minute, you have enough stories to fill an entire episode? Wait a minute, why don't we do that? Yeah. Like, we can do that. Why not?
I
think basically how that idea came up. So it's basically thanks to Matt from Arsenal.
Very cool. All right, good to know. And I think that, the regular show is very entertaining, like I said, taking the microscope to one band, but I genuinely really enjoy the tour stories. Those are really cool. That's a lot of fun.
They're very, very fun to make.
So I'm not I've never been a part of a touring band or anything like that. I spent many years, like I said, helping out bands. I've carried amplifiers down ice-covered steps when it's 5 degrees outside. And I sacrificed my back so that this guy's like vintage Marshall head didn't hit the ground. Just slammed into a rail and felt that for 2 weeks. But I have my version of a very short, not a tour story, but a show story that I think you guys will get a kick out of. So this is back, this must be close to 20 years ago. There was there's a little venue, and just kind of in the middle of nowhere. Across the street was a gas station. Across the other street was like a fire department. So not like a legit venue, kind of like a I don't know, like a VFW or something, basically a small hall that people could rent out for anything. Some people do like wedding receptions there. Some people throw parties there. And in this case, a bunch of bands got together, rented the place out, and said, we're gonna put on a show. So I was there with my buddy Rich, who I'd mentioned earlier, and I think we knew 2 out of the 5 bands. So we said, oh, we'll get there early. We'll help set up. We'll help run cables, whatever they need. So we get down and we're helping roll cabinets from side to side. All of a sudden, there's smoke. And so one of the guitar players goes, hey, who's the asshole that turned on the smoke machine? Like, we're trying to set up. You can't be running a smoke machine. So the smoke is starting to get a little thicker. And now he's yelling. He goes, who's the asshole with the smoke machine? So all the bands are like, we don't have a smoke machine, dude. An extension cord caught on fire.
Oh.
And literally in a snap, it just turns black and starts filling the room. Like at an alarming rate, because it wasn't a big place to begin with. People are still standing around smoking cigarettes, thinking that like some people must not have heard. Maybe they thought it was a smoke machine.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget my buddy Rich grabs this kid by his shirt collar and goes, "Get the fuck!" We're throwing people out of this venue because the thing is like on fire. So we all run outside. It was a summer day, so the fire department had their bay doors open, and you could see firefighters walking around. We're yelling across the street and waving our arms. Well, they think that we're just like goofing with them, like they weren't taking us seriously. They're like waving back, and we're like, no, we're like, bring the fucking truck. And somebody actually had to call, like they had to call 911.
Oh my God.
And they had to make an emergency call before they took it seriously. Luckily, the place didn't burn down. Obviously, the show didn't happen because the inside was obviously couldn't put a show on there. But that was just that's a fun one that I like to just throw out there randomly. The kids, but I'll never forget there were 2 teenagers. Guy and a girl were like standing up against the wall, just smoking a cigarette, chatting, just having the time of their lives, while 2 feet away from them there's a fire, and they're just oblivious to the whole thing. And my buddy grabbing one of them by the shirt collar and screaming in this kid's face, and he goes, "Get the fuck outside, go!" And so yeah, no tour stories, but just a funny story from a local show. So that's my contribution to the Metal Verbalizers.
Cool.
Perfect.
Appreciate that. I thought it was kind of funny because I was thinking like, it was very, very lucky that the fire department was so close that you could basically do that. But apparently it didn't really help.
Not.
Yeah, I mean, they were right across the street, which to this day, whenever he and I talk about that story, that's always the part we laugh about, is exactly that. What are the odds that the venue happened to be across the street? What are the odds that it was summer and that the bay doors were open? And I said, how often are people messing with the fire department where they didn't even take us seriously at first? They thought we were
that's
kidding.
Definitely something you start thinking about.
Yeah. So somebody got on their phone and they were like, they put in an official report. They called and they said the place is on fire. And to be fair, because they were across the street, they got there in about 10 seconds. Then you saw the lights come on and the trucks just drove. And because it was a small electrical fire that hadn't really spread, like I remember it was a concrete building. So it wasn't like wood paneling was going to catch on fire.
Right.
And they came in and they were checking and making sure everybody was out. And we saw one of them was standing outside getting some gear. And we told them, we said, we did our best. We grabbed 2 people and we pulled them out. And the guy was like kind of yelling at us. He was like, "Well, how long were you guys in there?" We're like, "Not very long." And the guy was like, do you need an ambulance? We're like, no, we're fine. Like, but I guess that's just protocol for them to make sure that you're okay. But
electrical fires can be fucking scary.
Yeah. Well, and just how fast all of a sudden it's light smoke. And that's when one of the guys was like, oh, is that a smoke machine? Turn that off. We're trying to prepare. To snap of your fingers, and it's as black as your shirt, and it's quickly filling the room. And yeah, I mean, inhaling that shit obviously isn't good.
No.
So I'm glad we got out when
it's
we
almost
did,
better smoking your regular cigarette.
Sure. Oh yeah, I'm sure a cigarette isn't nearly as bad as whatever toxic fumes we were inhaling for those
rubber and oil and shit.
Yeah, and I'm sure it wasn't as long as, you know, in your head it seems like it's a lot longer. I'm sure it wasn't that long that we were down there. Luckily, we were pretty close to the exit/entrance, so we were able to run out relatively fast. But at the time, our concern was trying to mentally remember how many people were down here and how many people are outside now. And, you know, we're kind of counting. I think I remember 8. Okay, do you count 8? You know? And it was just kind of like, it was a little nerve-wracking. But everybody was fine. The building didn't burn down. No one perished in the fire. I don't even remember hearing that anybody lost any equipment. So I think it was
all right.
For as good as it could go, that's about as good as it went. So yeah, that is my contribution to the Metal Verbalizers tour stories.
Thank you very much for that.
I mean, I can go on about getting laughed at Slayer. I went to the bathroom and walking out of the bathroom and everybody's chuckling and pointing at me. I'm like, what the fuck? I just had a Slayer t-shirt on and some jeans. I looked like everybody else. And I go, why the hell is everybody laughing at me? And I look down and there's about 4 feet of toilet paper. It got stuck under my shoe. So as I'm leaving the bathroom, there's about 4 feet of toilet paper behind me. And so that was pretty funny.
That's kind of funny. That's pretty much what you see in movies.
Yeah. That's a scene in a movie, right? At the same show, I got to see the iconic, if you remember that Slayer DVD documentary that came out in like the early 2000s, the guy had Slayer carved in his forearm. I saw a guy in Chicago had it in his, and it was real, had it in his chest, and he carved Slayer, and he was running around without his shirt on. I don't know for a fact he was on drugs, but if he wasn't, that would have shocked me. And the guy was like fucking bleeding all over, and he had Slayer.
Oh, he did it on the show.
Oh, he did it there.
Oh shit!
Yeah, he got in, grabbed a razor blade, took his shirt off, and cut Slayer into it. Or maybe his buddy did, you know, because the lettering seemed pretty good. And ran around covered in blood, fucking Slayer carved into his chest.
Some people are fucking crazy.
Fucking
but speaking of that, like, just for fun, what would you say is the best show that you have attended?
All right, everybody calm down. Get ready to be angry because when I tell you about this, it's going to blow your fucking mind. This is, I love how I have an immediate answer because I've been asked this 100 times. The answer has never changed. And I've seen great bands. But as far as one show, one package, driving home from school, and this is when there used to be a local radio station that actually played good metal bands. And so we're listening to it, and I'll never forget, the announcer goes, and tonight, don't miss it, Motorhead, Dio, and Iron Maiden. He goes, you've got a couple hours to get up here. We didn't even go home. We made a beeline for Chicago. $20. And I got to see, it was Motorhead opened the show, then it was Dio, then it was Iron Maiden for $20.
Talk about a lineup.
The shirt cost more than the damn ticket cost.
God
damn. And I've seen, I'm very thankful to say that I've seen a lot of good bands. I mean, I've seen Priest, I've seen Sabbath, I've seen Rammstein multiple times, Gwar, fucking you name, I probably see them. But for a lineup like that, and the coolest part is that we somehow missed it. We just didn't know it was happening. And it was like perfect timing. We're driving home. We just happen to have the radio on, and the guy just happens to announce it. I mean, we drove there with our backpack still in the back seat. We just We didn't even go home. We just said we have enough time where if we get there, if we leave right now, we'll get there with time to spare. And pulled up, got parking, jumped right in line, and we're really thankful because our fear was that it would be sold out before we got to the door. Because that's a pretty big bill. Motorhead, Dio,
sure.
and
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it can get any bigger than that.
Exactly. And so, like, there's two people in front of us, and our fingers are crossed. And as soon as we get up there, I go, "You got 3 more tickets?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, we got 3 more." I go, "I need 3 right now." And it was just one of the best shows I've ever seen. Yeah. Not just the bands, but the whole thing behind it. Like, it was, you couldn't get any more last minute than hearing about it while you're already driving. And, you know, luckily it's like nobody had to work after school. Nobody had anything that could stop them from going. Yeah. So we all just immediately went up there.
It was just meant to be.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, like, best show, probably that one. I did see a number of years ago on Halloween night, Cattle Decapitation and Cannibal Corpse.
Right.
And one of the coolest things happened. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the whole Ace Ventura thing, and that's how Cannibal Corpse got big. Well, it was Halloween night, so a guy jumps on stage and he has the Hawaiian shirt and the pompadour hair, and George looks over and stops, and he just starts laughing for a second. The guy jumps into the crowd, and that was really cool because there was a lot of younger people there, and I just wondered, like, do these younger people understand why that's so funny? Like, do they get the whole Ace Ventura? You know,
I fucking love Ace Ventura.
Yeah, same. But I just miss the old festivals. I miss going to like Ozfest for $25, seeing 15 bands. And again, I mean, this kind of goes back to that, you know, they would have 2, sometimes 3 stages. And so a lot of the underground bands, a lot of the new guys would get a stage. And I remember running over to those stages, you know, before the big bands would play, before Slipknot and Black Label Society, seeing these smaller bands and going, wow, I've never heard of these guys. This is really great. And this is me at like 14, 15 years old, something like that. And so I guess always since kind of the beginning, I've really been into the underground stuff. And then once I got into like high school, for example, the older classmen were in bands, and they would play the skateboard park down the street, and they would play a show there. And I remember this is just kind of interesting, I guess, especially for like outsiders that don't listen to metal. You think like, oh, I'm going to go to a metal show and I'm going to get like beat up, or it's going to be super violent. And I remember going to my first underground show and just kind of nervous, like, I'm not going to know anybody. You know, this is like my first underground show, not like a big band like Iron Maiden or something. And just seeing that real sense of community, seeing how people were, everybody just got along and everybody was really cool. And I mean, yeah, there were pits and stuff, but like if somebody fell, you helped them up, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I left with a stack of band demos, stickers, flyers for the next shows. And basically through my time at high school, I just amassed this massive collection of stickers, CDs, flyers. And obviously this is far before podcasts or anything like that were a thing, so the thought wasn't even in my head. But I guess that's kind of what started my journey into, I really want to take a deep dive into, you know, the underground in that. I remember, like, you know, Napster was really popular. And you could, you know, obviously the whole lawsuit with like Metallica, like you could download whole albums for free and whatever. Well, there was another site. It was very similar to Napster, but it was all metal bands. And I don't think the site exists anymore, but they were all underground metal bands from different countries. So like Poland and Sweden and the UK. And everybody would just upload their music, kind of like the metal encyclopedia or the metal archives, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Similar to that. And I had a CD burner and I had my big spindle of 100 blank CDs. And I remember just spending weekends downloading everybody's 3-song, 5-song EPs and just walking around school when everybody else is listening to, your more popular metal bands.
Yeah. And
I've got these like teenagers from Poland that put out this metal, this metal band. And, that's kind of what started. I'm very much against like gatekeeping, like I'm the kind of person that where somebody might go, oh, you haven't heard of this band? What the hell's the matter with you? I'll go, go, oh, you haven't heard of this band? Here you go. Take this, listen to it. And so, even when I was younger, I've always wanted to share the bands that I'm listening to because I think that the person next to me might like them.
Yeah.
And then that turned into, obviously years later, then it kind of turned into what this is now. And pleasantly surprised to find out that, a lot of people do like this kind of stuff. A lot of people do like, like with you guys, to take one band and put a magnifying glass to them, because I do the same thing. I turn on your guys' show, I listen to a band and I go, man, those guys are fucking awesome. That's really cool. And made a fan out of me, so it works. Both formulas, what you guys are doing and what I'm doing, both formulas definitely work.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we're both doing the right thing. I think, take just 2 seconds to pat ourselves on the back, and I think as long as I'm sure I can speak for both of us when I say that as long as there's people willing to listen, we'll be putting out episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And once again, if people don't listen, we have always said that we won't look too much into that. Yes, it's always fun when we see that the numbers goes up, obviously.
Right.
But we won't look into that too much. We will do this as long as we feel that this is fun and we love to do it.
Right. Then, like you said, you were going to do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
You were going to have the conversation anyway, so you might as well record it. And you never know.
We still send a ton of stuff over Messenger or something like that.
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, we still send a lot of stuff that maybe doesn't go on the show because the bands are too large or whatever reason.
Right.
We still send stuff between each other. Like, is this cool? Is this something that we can put on a show maybe?
Right.
Oh yeah, you're right. You already have your eyes on them. Cool.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're a little bit tiny too large. They just played Wacken on the main stage, like.
Yeah. Because I guess we could kind of go into that a little bit as well, if you would like to. Like, we're kind of like divided the styles as well. Like Eric is going more like the kind of classic hard rock, more like heavy metal stuff, and I'm going more into like the kind of extreme metal music, and not least thrash metal.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny when you kind of look at it from a like wider perspective. Like our episodes, a lot of it is thrash.
Yeah,
I think I've looked at it at some point, and kind of like literally my episodes are like 90% thrash,
right,
or something like that. If you count like stuff like black thrash as thrash, then it's like 90% almost.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with thrash, man. Thrash fucking rules. Exactly. I keep saying on my show, man, like I need to play more thrash.
Yeah.
Well, some thrash is great. Like from the show that we attended last, Bloodstain that opened the night, they were fucking great.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic.
Hell yeah. I have to. You have to send me a link when we're done with this. I'll check them out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not into thrash too much, but they were absolutely fantastic. And talk about delivering on the stage as well.
Yeah. Yeah, some bands, they kind of have the robot stance, everybody stands still, and then you've got guys, the one that I always go back to, especially because, well, two guys, a little bit older, but the energy is just the same. You've got Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, and you've got Rob Halford from Judas Priest, and still to this day, man, they're both just like, I mean, they must run a mile on stage just from the left side to the right side, like. And I love Ozzy. I'm always gonna love Ozzy.
Yeah.
But he's like a puppet at this point. I mean, the dude just kind of stands there, and he's got his strings holding him up. And
well, right now he can't fucking walk even.
No,
basically.
right. Well, and he I know we're all about underground, but just to since talking about it. He said he wants to do one more album. He actually said just recently that he wants to get Sabbath back together for one more show.
Oh shit!
Yeah, it's like, fuck, dude, give it. Like, and this is coming from somebody that absolutely loves Black Sabbath. Yeah. Give it a fucking rest, brother.
Yeah,
it's
I see
enough.
That is something that we can really get into, because there is something with, like, you gotta stop when you're at the top.
Yeah.
Don't do like Motley Crue and Kiss.
Oh God, yeah.
Kiss, we saw them in 2017, and of all shows that I've seen, and we saw a band that were like playing actually kind of good rock and roll, but they were just standing by their mic stands and didn't really do anything on stage.
Right.
That
Here
definitely...
is with the Kiss show is basically the opposite.
A lot of theatrics, fire, explosions.
Fires and explosions that weren't in time with the music for the first part. And it sounded like their sound engineer had taken a vacation. Like, hey guys, I know that you have a show tonight, but I'm going to Bahamas right now. See you guys. Have a good one.
But that's a very
sounded
funny...
like ass.
That's a very funny thing with a band like Sarkader that we mentioned earlier. Like, they're really the type of band who's like just walking straight out on stage and just go full tempo right away and start like headbanging like crazy.
Yeah.
It's like
that was
really
pedal to the metal.
Full tempo. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it seems like some bands, like I'll go back to Cannibal Corpse. You look at Corpse Grinder, you look at the thickness of that dude's neck, and you go, it makes sense because you haven't stopped headbanging for 45 minutes. Me, like, I'm old, man. My bones are crickly. I don't mosh anymore, man. I'm in the back at the bar, and I just go woohoo, and order another drink. And I watch the younger kids. Actually, a quick 2-second story about that. This is Chicago Open Air. This was 4 or 5, like 6 years ago or something. And I love Hatebreed, right? I've been listening to Hatebreed for forever. So Hatebreed comes on, and pit's going, and I'm like, I'm jumping in the pit. I jump in the pit. I get bodied in about 2 seconds, and I'm just like struggling to get up. Some like 16-year-old kid's like, here, come on, old man, let me help you. And I just was like, I walked out like holding my back. I'm like, all right, I'm retired. That's it. I will always remember today as Adam's last pit. I got bodied by a bunch of teenagers in a Hatebreed pit. I'm done. And so, now if you want to catch the Black Tornado guy, just go to the bar, and I'm there. I'm having an overpriced beer.
Yeah. Talking about beer prices, holy fucking shit. Over here,
man. Oh, yeah.
I don't know the beer prices over there, but over here you're gonna look at like $7 to $10 at least a beer.
Oh, if I was paying 10, I'd be happy.
And then we're talking. That's not even a pint.
No, that's what I mean. The small beers. Yeah.
We're talking 40 centiliters. I don't know how that translates into a pint.
It's a small beer, but
yeah.
I mean,
it's basically this little guy.
Yeah, you can still get away with like local shows, pretty decent beer prices. I remember a great venue that we had out here, and I think you could get a regular can. You know, what's a can, like 12 ounces or something like that? You could get a regular can for, I think, $5, which at a show is about as fair as you're going to get. But I'm a big fan of pre-gaming, where we'll get to the venue with a cooler and just stand out by the car, stand out by the truck, have a few beers and walk in. And the venue that we used to do that a lot at now apparently they have security guards that like you're not gonna get arrested or anything, but they're like, hey, stop that, get walking. And so they don't want you pre-gaming, outside. I will say this, as far as expensive drinks go, and not to promote a band that doesn't need promotion. I saw Slipknot back it's probably like 6 years ago or something, and Slipknot had put out their own whiskey, and they had you could get it as a shot, or you could get it with a shot and a Coke. And I was there with a friend of mine, and he's a big whiskey guy, and I said let's try them. And it was like, I don't know, it was like $13 for a shot. I just like, fuck, I just like, whatever, dude. Like, I'll buy us a couple shots, and we took them, and I'll say this, pretty excellent whiskey, really good. Was it worth $13? No, but it was really good. It wasn't like some shitty Jack Daniels or something. Like, it was pretty good whiskey, and they didn't have the bottles for sale, obviously, because I'm sure there's some kind of liquor laws about selling bottles of booze, selling glass bottles of booze at a show. But
over here, when you go to a show, the glasses are plastic nowadays.
Right. Oh yeah, that's everywhere here. I mean, you can get a can, like an aluminum can, but nowhere.
That's not gonna hurt if you get it in your head.
No one's gonna hand you a glass bottle here. Speaking of stuff getting thrown, and since we were on the topic of like insane stories,
if you enjoy what we are doing over here on Metal Verbalizers podcast, we are sure that you will enjoy Black Tornado podcast as well. If you do enjoy his show as well, make sure to follow his social media and subscribe to his YouTube channel. And whilst you're over there on the YouTube channel, you can also watch Part 2 of this metal talk.